I would request an additional 5 minutes to 10 minutes for my presentation if you'd indulge me.
I would be amenable to that if the council would be inclined. I think this is the third time that we've seen this. I wouldn't mind giving them an additional 5 minutes if that means that we can finally put it to bed. But that's just me.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I certainly appreciate the additional time. As indicated, my name is Richard Aiken. I'm here on behalf of the applicant this evening. I do have the rest of my team here, and I'd like to get them up in a minute.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Michael Price, and I'm the Director of the Land Brokerage Division for LQ Commercial, formerly LandQuest.
$1,042,327.78.
Cushman and Wakefield Commercial Property, Southwest Florida.
Stress.
When the Pine Island Road overlay was established, which helped us force the commercial closer to the rooftops from Hancock Bridge.
This is going to be as unusable for a major big box user.
I have handled thousands of properties.
The time will not change the configurations that cause the developer we're proposing to be the best possible development for the city of Cape Coral. Thank you.
Once again,
Yeah.
So my next question is, because you're talking about the odd shaped, the size, it's pretty big to me, but I'm not a developer.
Right.
So could like an Amazon fit there?
You mean an industrial distribution center? The here and now reality of this is Lowe's isn't calling. Home Depot's not calling.
Now we've got 50 feet of access road. So now what commercial is going to come in and want to put a box on 150 feet?
Hey, take a left, go up the road, hit another light, go up past that, take a right, take a turn down in, and then come into the parking lot to get into the center. That's what we're looking at here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if you go to the original intent, as Persides was trying to say, we were trying to build Del Prado north of Pine Island Road all the way out to 41 and then ultimately to 75 as a limited access, basically an evacuation route corridor.
Cosden?
Aye.
Cummings?
No.
Gunter?
No.
4 ayes, 4 nays, motion failed. Ordinance 51-23, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral Comprehensive Plan by amending the future land use map from mixed use to multifamily residential land use for property described as a tract or parcel of land situated in the state of Florida, County of Lee, City of Cape Coral, lying in the northeast quarter of Section 21, Township 43 South, Range 24 East, is more particularly described herein. Property located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Del Prado Boulevard and De Navarra Parkway, providing severability and an effective date.
Mr. City Attorney?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want to briefly kind of provide the City Council where we are procedurally regarding this specific matter. As you all recall, this matter was a reconsideration motion. That reconsideration motion has now passed. It was allowed to be reset for today's date, a date specific for the council to retake up the matter. Now, where it stands right now, based upon Robert's rules, the motion is what it was when it was made. It was seconded, and that's where the council is presented with that specific item. Now, what you can do, pursuant to the Robert's rules, is the motion can be amended. It could be other action can be taken, or it could be passed or defeated. So that is where we presently sit here today with this motion. So at this point in time, it's whether or not there is still an interest by the motion maker in the second to move this matter forward, and that's something that should be ascertained and determined at this point in time.
Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Because we had a previous application that was reviewed and presented, and then it came back before the council with an amendment, and it was requested that my staff had an opportunity to evaluate that new application. My staff has completed that. We have a presentation that is prepared. So at this time, it would be my recommendation, in order to make sure that we have a clean record of what is being analyzed and what is being proposed before the council. I think it would be in the best interest of both the organization and the council for either the motion maker or the second to withdraw the motion, or the second allow my staff to present the new analysis based on what was submitted, and the applicant to present what they had proposed, just to kind of reset the slate, starting fresh, and then you all can deliberate and take any discussions, make any motions on the new presentation and information brought forward.
And that would be legally appropriate if that is what the council wants to do.
So I guess first, who was the person who made the motion and the second?
The motion was made originally by Councilmember Hayden, and then it was seconded by Councilmember Cummings.
Okay, so I will look to you two first to see if you would like to weigh in on what the city attorney or the city manager expressed.
Yeah, and just to make it clear that once staff gives a presentation, the public input period will be open, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Once the motion has been either withdrawn or the second, then we essentially will start from the beginning, just as if it was never before the council.
And I know the staff presentation has changed based on changes to the project, so I will withdraw the motion.
Okay, so since the motion maker withdrew it, then now it will go back to staff to do the presentation.
That is correct.
Okay, so I'll turn it over to staff. Chad, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. For the record, Chad Boyko, Principal Planner with the City's Planning Division. I'm going to sort of just, the previous case was they were looking to amend 25 acres out of a 50-acre tract from the mixed-use land use designation to the multifamily future land use designation. I'm going to skip the previous presentation I did and just kind of hit what the revised analysis is. They've revised their original request from the 25 acres of multifamily land use that they're seeking, and they have gone down to 18.67 acres of multifamily land use that they'd like to do. I've got some maps that will kind of show everything later on as well. The revised request is that the entire frontage along Del Prado Boulevard would be retained as the MX future land use designation with a minimum depth of at least 250 feet along the frontage of Del Prado. The commercial area with the revised request is increased from 13.77 acres to 20.23 acres. The maximum density that would be allowed with the new request would be 466 units within the multifamily land use area. And then the maximum commercial intensity would be around 880,000 square feet of commercial at an FAR of 1.0, which is probably a fairly unrealistic number that would ever be hit with the FAR on this site. So the revised maps that you see before you, the left is the revised future land use map. You can see that the interior of the site would be amended to the multifamily designation. You would have the surrounding area in all directions would essentially be mixed use land use, except for the area that is to the north within unincorporated Lee County. And then to the left is just sort of the aerial overlaid with the area that would be designated as multifamily. Key notes as you see that the entire frontage of Del Prado would now be retained with that depth of 250 feet. So this is just a quick little proposed plan that the applicant provided to us with the revised request. And you can see we kind of add a little footnote in there in terms of what you'd be looking at with the out parcels. You've got 7 out parcels. 1 through 4 are ranging in size generally between 1.5 acres or 1.25 acres to a little under 2 acres. Out parcel number 5 is a little under 5 acres, which they currently have in right now for a storage facility. So that would eat up about 5 acres of this commercial area. And then the other 2, number 6 is the area that is directly at the intersection of US 41 and Del Prado, which is just a shade under 3 acres. And then the last one is the majority of the chunk that is retained as part of the new proposal, and that is 6.5 acres right along Del Prado Boulevard. We just wanted to quickly show you a couple of the existing power centers that you have in Cape Coral, which is kind of what staff sees this site as being envisioned as. You have the one that is at the intersection of Nicholas Parkway and Pineland Road District. It's 30 acres in size, give or take, and the frontage and the depth are around between 11 and 1,200 feet. Two other ones, Shops at Surfside, which is 20 acres, has that same similar depth and frontage. And then the other one is Coralwood Shopping Center, around 30 acres in size, which has roughly around the same depth and frontage as the site you have in question. Now, staff, we understand that every site is different between access, frontage, and things of that nature, but these are similar kind of sites. And if you have a site that is 40 acres in size with significant frontage and depth, we're looking at the potential of sort of a power center style development that would go into these types of sites. So our quick analysis is that we mentioned that it has substantial frontage and depth. The proposed plan would be 5 outparcels less than 3 acres in size, one of nearly 5 acres for a storage facility, and 1 outparcel around 7 acres. The likely development that you're going to see on those small outparcels is going to be, some akin to gas stations, car wash, fast food restaurants, things that would go on small sites that are outparcels to a multifamily development. It's at a commercial node of Del Prado Boulevard and US 41. The site's future land use does currently allow for a multifamily development with a zoning change to a PUD or multifamily for some acres of that site. And then we've mentioned earlier in our previous presentation that there's a large amount of existing residential in the area that's within Cape Coral. You have Entrada, Bella Vita, another multifamily subdivision around that area, along with the existing single-family residential that's in the nearby area. So therefore, staff finds that the revised request is more suitable than the previous request since you have increased the commercial square footage. However, staff still sees this site as well suited for a larger style commercial development based upon its frontage, size, width, and depth, and planning staff still recommends denial of the revised request proposed by the applicant. I'm here for any further questions.
Mr. City Attorney?
Just as a housekeeping tool, I want to make certain that Councilmember Cummings also withdraws her second as well, based on Councilmember Hayden withdrawing his motion.
Yeah, I withdraw my second.
Perfect. I just wanted to top that loose end.
Okay. All right, I'll now open up public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 51-23, please come forward.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Richard Aiken. I know that I only have 5 minutes. I would request an additional 5 minutes to 10 minutes for my presentation if you'd indulge me.
Well, the council rules is 5 minutes, I believe. 3 minutes, I'm sorry, 3 minutes. So does
Is it 3 or
council want to
5?
waive that?
5.
Public input?
Public input, that's
5.
right.
It's 5 minutes. Yes, it's 5 minutes. That's what the council rules are.
That's what I figured.
5, yeah.
Public input's 3.
Correct.
Madam City
But
Clerk?
this is a,
So it's my understanding that the staff is 5, the consultant for the applicant is 5, and then
Citizens'
residents
input
are
is 3.
3. Like if a resident were to come up and from the neighborhood to speak, it's
Okay,
3.
this is the applicant, so the 5 minute would apply to the applicant and not the 3 minutes.
I would be amenable to that if the council would be inclined. I think this is the third time that we've seen this. I wouldn't mind giving them an additional 5 minutes if that means that we can finally put it to bed. But that's just me.
Same thing.
I agree.
Well, I think we need to go down the line and see if we want to deviate from the 5 minutes to 10 minutes. It sounds like that was a recommendation. It sounds like
I'm okay with an additional 5. I'm okay.
I'm okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so you have 10 minutes, sir. Madam City Clerk, please set the clock to 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I certainly appreciate the additional time. As indicated, my name is Richard Aiken. I'm here on behalf of the applicant this evening. I do have the rest of my team here, and I'd like to get them up in a minute. But as you know, the request before you is to change the future land use to multifamily from mixed use for 18.6 acres out of an approximate total 50 that this project is on. We've been working on this project for quite a while, almost 5 years now. And we've reduced the acreage that's subject to the change now several times. You heard about that from staff's presentation. Our goal throughout that has been to get the approval for a project that incorporates both the commercial and the multifamily use, but to get approval for a project that's ultimately buildable, and that's what we've been looking at. You can see from the slide in front of you what we have on top is what the original request was. That's what went to planning and zoning and received a vote recommendation of approval from them, and on the bottom is where we are now. And as indicated by Mr. Boyko, we've got 250-foot depth here, with all the commercial part, or the entire commercial being along the frontage on Del Prado there. We've looked through the amended staff report or the modified staff report, and there's a lot that we ultimately agree with staff. There's a lot of favorable stuff in there. At the end of the day, staff concludes that the updated request is much more appropriate, as Mr. Boyko said, but still not optimal, so they're recommending denial. And the basis for that is that it would eliminate commercial space from the city's inventory, and ultimately they conclude that the mixed-use future land use has more long-term value to the city. Ultimately, that's the real point that we disagree with. So, look, we've been marketing this project for at least 5 years, high and low, trying to get the commercial use sold in this. There has been zero interest for the type of commercial use that staff is suggesting should go here. There's been no interest over this period of time, which is why we've come to you with this proposal. There's currently 352,000 square feet of vacant, unused retail space within 5 miles of this project. That's part of the reason why there hasn't been any interest in putting commercial at this location, because there's so much existing space out there that's not even being used in this area. This plan would call for a market-correct project, what we believe would be market-correct, incorporating both the roadfront commercial and anchored by a Class A multifamily project. Ultimately, the idea here is that, yes, you're not going to get as much commercial as what you might get in a perfect world, but the reality is you still get some commercial, and the multifamily here drives the commercial. It gets the commercial actually built instead of being something that could maybe one day be built in the future. Once this multifamily aspect got involved here, that's when we actually started getting interest from commercial tenants in this location. But I also want to point out something very important. This slide here shows that there are some very important issues with the shape and size of the parcel that hinder the ability of it to be a commercial development, all right? If you look, first of all, we only have 200 feet of frontage roughly on US 41. We have no access on US 41. We're not going to get it because you need at least 600 feet, 660 actually from DOT in order to get an access. We're not going to get that. You also see over here on the right-hand side where my cursor is that you have two different utility easements right here, all right? You have both FPL easements. This one is a 100-foot easement with a current transmission line in it, which aligns to the north and to the south. We can't do anything about that, and that hinders the ability to put anything on that end of the site. You also have a 60-foot easement right here where there's another FPL transmission line. It basically makes it very difficult to use this end of the property as a large commercial retail center. We also have over 2,700 feet of frontage along Del Prado. Despite that 2,700 feet, we have not one median cut on Del Prado. That's an access issue that many of the people that we've spoken to try to market this to simply, it makes it almost impossible without an access, a median cut there. We're not going to get a median cut. Instead, we have De Navarro where we can ultimately get in. Also, we have this preserve that you see, the green area, all right? That's a preserve. We can't build on that, whether that's multifamily, whether that's commercial. And so you see this yellow box that we have here. That's typically the size of what we would need for the type of commercial tenant that staff's suggesting. If you kind of compare where that would fit throughout the rest of the parcel, you can see that these are some of the issues that we've had in trying to market and get this. So ultimately, these factors that I've just laid out for you are not going to change. They are what they are. They're baked in. The bottom line is that we don't think with those that there's going to be much of an ability even in the future, and that's where the disagreement is with staff. I don't think staff even disagrees that right now we haven't been able to get it, and we've been trying to get it for that use for some time. There was also some discussion about what could be built on this project. Ultimately, the future land use would allow 20% of the area to be developed as multifamily. The issue with that is that it could be developed, it doesn't allow enough units to ultimately get where we're trying to go. I also want to point out, and this is very important, the zoning on the property is commercial, all right? So even with what we're asking you to do here today, we still have to come back again for another zoning action in order to build even one single unit of multifamily on this, all right? So there is no use, even if you approve this, there isn't the ability to take the area that remains mixed use and use part of that, 20% of that, to get more multifamily than what we're asking for. It would still have to come back to you for a zoning change. The other options that are out there in order to utilize this site for multifamily would be to do a mixed-use building with maybe commercial on the bottom and have some multifamily on top. The bottom line is that's a very urban product that is pedestrian-oriented, and this location does not support that at this point in time. From a mix of multifamily and commercial, this is really, in our mind, the most viable option. It's the only viable option for the property at this point in time, and it's the only viable option that we believe is going to exist for some time on the property. There are some economic benefits. I talked about this earlier, but what I'd really like to do at this point is allow Mike Price to come up and talk a little bit about the issues that we faced in trying to market this property to commercial retail tenants.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Michael Price, and I'm the Director of the Land Brokerage Division for LQ Commercial, formerly LandQuest, for Florida. Roughly 12 years of experience in the commercial real estate industry in Southwest Florida and throughout the state. In addition to the various asset classes we service, LQ is also one of the most substantial retail tenant representative firms in the state, touting an exclusive retail client base of roughly 113 national, regional, and local retail tenants throughout our operating markets in Florida, and are involved in numerous commercial developments locally and throughout the state. We have spent the last 5 years working on this site, and I can't emphasize enough the lack of interest. It is zero interest or offers from any prospect until we started down the path of entertaining a multifamily project on a portion of this site. The market has clearly indicated to us that this site is not suitable for a retail development in the real world. Many factors are evident, such as the absence of access to US 41, the absence of median cuts and access off Del Prado, and site configuration, to name a few. Based on our discussions throughout our marketing process, the issues at hand are key determinants for a commercial project and not going to change anytime soon. We believe this plan accomplishes the goals of both the city and property owner and incorporates a project that provides much-needed housing and a substantial commercial component that will service the residents of this part of Cape Coral. We thank you for your time and consideration.
Afternoon, Council, Mayor, staff. Joe Mazurkos, BJM Consulting. On behalf of the application, we often look to residential versus non-residential because of tax base. I want to show you I have 3 properties here in Cape Coral. Target, their annual taxes last year, projected for this year is $145,033.87. Public Center on Pine Island Road at Pandora. Their tax projected $96,110.31. The Savona in Southwest Cape Coral, an apartment complex, 319 units. I know because I did that one. Its projected taxes this year to the taxing districts, $1,042,327.78. Multifamily provides a better tax base than retail. So don't think of the limitation of retail here as hurting you from a tax base. The other thing I want to stress is that the limitations to this site that were gone over, and so much, if you looked at this site compared to the sites that the staff showed you, those were rectangular or square sites. They have access on 2 or 3 sides, light controlled access, street light control access. The constraints for this size, the size and configuration won't change over time. The preservation parcel that's in the northwest side, it's not going to change. Matter of fact, it's already grown a little bit. It could grow some more if it's left undeveloped. The FPL easements are not going to go away. The lack of access to US 41 will be there permanently. Time will not impact that. The no curb cuts along Del Prado are going to be the issue in perpetuity. There's going to be no more curb cuts along that section of Del Prado. Staff is completely wrong, and I don't say that very often, but their concept that time will fix this site when the rooftops show up around it is not consistent with the configuration and the layout of this site and the geometrics of the roadways adjacent to it. This is going to be as unusable for a major big box user in 20 years from now as it is today. The market's not going to change. The time will not change the configurations that cause the developer we're proposing to be the best possible development for the city of Cape Coral. Thank you.
Once again, thank you for the additional time. If you have any questions of us, please let us know. We'd be happy to answer anything.
Thank you. I'll now open up public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 51-23, please come forward.
Good evening, councilmen and women. My name is Gary Tasman. I'm the CEO and principal broker for Cushman & Wakefield Commercial Property, Southwest Florida. I represent the buyer of the multifamily site on this project, and I want to talk to you a little bit about, first, my experience in handling land and development in Southwest Florida and specifically in Cape Coral. I've been here for almost 30 years. I've handled large portfolios of land in and along the Pine Island corridor. I was involved as the chairman of the Council for Progress when the Pine Island Road overlay was established, which helped us force the commercial closer to the rooftops from Hancock Bridge and 41 over into the Cape. I've been a very strong advocate for commercial in Cape Coral in the right places. I can tell you what's going to happen now. If we don't get rooftops in this sub-area or residential units in this sub-area now, they're going to continue to develop on the east side of 41 outside of Cape Coral, which is going to create demand for commercial closer to the residential density that's going to be built there. And the commercial that you want or that staff has recommended to be in the Cape will never be in Cape Coral. It's going to end up being in North Fort Myers. And what will happen is 20 years from now, somebody will come along and say, well, why can't we do residential here? In the meantime, the asset sits dormant and non-revenue generating for anybody during that period. I have handled thousands of properties in Southwest Florida in one aspect or another. I have always been a very disciplined student of the market. My background is economics and finance and real estate, and I can tell you from the standpoint of how the market looks at this asset, for the purposes of commercial, it will never work. My recommendation to the staff is to look at it from a market value perspective and from a market utility perspective. My recommendation and my ask of this council is to consider the opportunity to generate revenue today as a multifamily parcel with supported commercial. And then if I'm wrong, if the market changes in some way and then somehow that becomes a viable physical property for commercial, let the market speak at that time and it'll get redeveloped. But right now, to be dormant over the next 20 years makes no sense at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on public input? Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion for ordinance 51-23?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, and I'll open up for any council discussion. Any council discussion? Councilmember Stanky.
Thank you. I'm not sure who's best prepared to answer a couple questions that I have, but one is, there's quite a number of rooftops in and around that area already. I'm wondering why, as those rooftops came, why that didn't change commercial investors' sentiment, and why those central rooftops, if you will make that huge difference.
I'd be happy to touch on that best I can. Rooftops are one of the dynamics for commercial. It's not the total dynamic. Anytime you add more rooftops to a condensed area, it helps. I feel like the way we have this site designed, if you go around the state of Florida and you look at, call it the last decade to 15 years of development and how garden-style apartment developments are constructed, when you anchor a site this size with apartments, it drives the outfront commercial. Having rooftops 3 miles down the road helps, but isn't going to drive the entirety of the project. Anchoring these with walkable, having multifamily and tenants that are able to walk to services are a major benefit. So this is a commonplace development. This is not out of the ordinary for anywhere that you see around the state of Florida. Again, this is more on the common side of design for these projects, if that answers the question.
It does, and
Okay.
and I certainly appreciate the addition of the commercial there along Del Prado. I think that makes a big difference as far as the entry to our city, from that point, and having the commercial along the roadway there. There's been talk of if we had the rooftops, that commercial would be there. There are some, if you will, potential commercial properties that are, I'm understanding, in contract, if you will.
Correct.
Are any of those do they currently have a contingency in their contract that says if this gets approved, then we'll do our project, but if it doesn't get approved, we won't do our project?
Not that I'm aware of in the contract, as I recall, no contingencies tied to the multifamily, but I can assure you that our conversations with them are, it's as much necessary as anything that the multifamily goes there. It's an added bonus to them. Maybe some of their tenants work without it, but it certainly helps when these developers go out to get their tenants to say, there's going to be X amount of units coming behind you.
That's all I've got. Thank you.
Councilmember Cummings?
Yes, thank you. So the great concern that I have is we don't have much commercial property left in Cape Coral. And understanding the population, we're over 200,000 residents, and we're under 8% commercial. In a city of our size, we should be between 30 to 40%. We're never going to get there, and I understand that. This is a concern I have, because we lack so much land here for commercial property, is we could hold on to this and have a better opportunity for maybe a Lowe's or something bigger to come. This is what I've been torn with, going back and forth for the last couple of weeks. So, you know, Mr. Mazurkowitz, we've talked about this a couple of years ago with our city even, you know, how we're lacking commercial. It's important to me, and I know a few of us up here on the dais, that's our goal, is to bring more commercial into our city. So this is kind of where I'm torn.
Can I speak to that?
Was that a question or a statement?
It's a statement.
Okay, then I'll go to Councilmember Long then. That was a statement.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, this council has not been shy about their desire to bring forward commercial. One of the problems that we face when we deal with a lot of situations like the one before us is that we're told, you know, that this is set for so many years, and this has been commercial for 5 years, 10 years, and nobody's been there. But part of the reason that is because we're still in our adolescence as a city. I think we're 50% built out, a little more, and so the market might not have driven the commercial in that particular area. And so if we were to say, yeah, maybe it hasn't been there for 10 years, and so now it's never going to be there, I don't know that that necessarily correlates with me. I think that if we allow the city to evolve and grow, that market will drive the commercial. So if we, in return, instead give away all of the commercial because in this exact moment we focus on the now and there's no commercial driver now, then by the time that there would be a market for that, we've given it all away by the way of residents. And so when they say it's not suitable for retail in the real world, that may be true for this real world. But part of our jobs up here is to be stewards of future generations of the city. And so I make a lot of my decisions when we're faced with these types of tasks with that in mind. One of the other particular concerns that I had was if you could bring back up, and I don't know, I don't have it available because I guess this information wasn't provided, but the prospective site plan, or not a site plan, but the zoning plan that you had shown with the commercial components on Del Prado, and the easement in particular. And the applicant had expressed, yeah, please, is someone going to work on that?
Yeah, we have it. It's in the reconsideration documents, I think.
IT needs to bring it up.
If I may, I did put it on my PowerPoint back to
I got it.
that
We
slide.
got it.
You okay.
Thank you, sir. So they're essentially saying that the site is useless in that regard for commercial, but then we've got a plan that shows that you've allocated that particular area towards commercial use. So how do you reconcile that particular fact?
So I think what we're saying is that what you're looking for is a large commercial anchor tenant like a Lowe's, for example, that because of the way this is designed, that type of a large tenant doesn't fit on that. As a commercial out parcel that's smaller, it's not going to have a Lowe's on, it's going to have something smaller, a dentist's office or something like that. That would fit there, which is what we're trying to put there, but trying to put something that's much larger just doesn't meet the site design constraints.
Well, sure, but theoretically, you could put something like the one you had just said in the centerpiece if it wasn't allocated towards multifamily, and you could have an out parcel similar to what it is that you're prospectively planning in the world of possibilities.
I suppose.
In the sense that anything's possible, geographically, that could map out that way. My only, again, if you look at you guys' zoning, not this one, but there's another one, and you show that whole chunk as being commercial. I'm sure you've allocated that towards your commercial allotment that you've told us that you've changed. And then in one breath, you say that this is going to be commercial, and then in the other, you say, this can never be commercial because this whole corner here is nixed. We've got easements here that won't allow for.
Oh, again, we're talking about that.
I'm talking about the easements, that's correct.
This one right here, yes.
Yep.
So, well, I think I think there's a couple issue with the easements. Number one, I'm not saying that it couldn't be a commercial, regardless of what you put on the rest of the chunk of this, to the left side of the screen, whatever's here on the point is still going to be hampered or in some ways affected by those easements. I think the issue with the easements is having connectivity back over to the rest of the parcel. I think the issue with that is also if you're going to try to put a parking lot that would encompass the entire size or entire parcel, you're not going to be able to go into the easement in order to do that. So what you're talking about is, regardless of what goes in the chunk to the left of it, this portion down here where it tapers off has design constraints where it may be able to be a commercial out parcel, whether the rest of it's multifamily or not, and that's our goal, is to make it a commercial out parcel. But when you try to use the site as a whole for a large anchor tenant to get enough land mass that you would need in order to put a Lowe's, for example, like you said in there, that's when you start looking at these constraints make that hard, if you understand the distinction I'm trying to make.
I guess I'm not being clear enough, I guess. You guys are telling me that you've got no plans to do anything over those easements because the easements preclude you from doing any activity.
I believe that is correct, and Linda, there's nothing we can do over those easements. At some point in time, we may have to try to go back to the easement holder and see if we can do something like stormwater or
You've not
something.
engaged in those discussions as of yet with the easement holder to secure that?
I believe that the easement language doesn't allow us to do that right now. So whether we could put stormwater management in there or something like that, I can't speak to that right now.
Okay. One of the other things I just want this council to consider is that the factors that have pre-existed up to this meeting might not be the same as this site moves forward because we've got a signalized intersection going in there that has not been the case for quite some time, which I think is going to change a lot of pedestrian movement in that area. So something to consider as well. Thank you.
Councilmember Walsh.
Yeah, I guess my question is for planning staff about the part that Councilmember Long was just talking about. This little area where the power lines are.
Mm-hmm.
That might not be suitable for commercial, but that could be used for stormwater runoff if there was a bigger tenant that were coming to the left? Or things like that, or would that not be able to be allowed?
That's, well, we have to look at that at a different time. It's, easements are a peculiar thing, and obviously you couldn't do anything underneath because it's a power line easement. I don't know what the easements would say in terms of what could be developed there. If they could ever amend the easement language, it's FP&L easement. So that's a tricky question, I guess.
Okay.
It would have to be looked at down the line as to what it could be utilized for other than just undeveloped land.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me, I guess my position hasn't changed much from when we had this discussion before. When you look at the need for multifamily in our city, now compared to 5 years ago, it's surely much different than it was 5 years ago. If you look at the study that was completed back in 2016, and then look at the study that was revised here in the beginning of 2023, the need has almost drastically changed. So for me, the question is, what do we need in the city? What is the need of the city? And this council has always taken a position that we all recognize that the need in the city is for commercial development. So if we keep taking chunks of land, and this is a large parcel of land, and we keep changing that to multifamily, we're never going to get that commercial. And in the discussion here today, they were talking about the needs of today. If the 8 of us start making decisions on what we need today compared to what our city needs for the future, we're going to fail as a city. So we have to keep that in mind. We have to really be looking forward to see what the need of the city is. Surely the need today may be something different, But when we only have a limited amount of parcels that are already commercial, and we keep advocating for more commercial property, I always say, if you want to change in results, you have to have a change in approach. We haven't done that. We haven't had that change in approach. We keep giving this land away. And at some point, you got to have a change in approach if you want to change in results. If we want to stay this 90 to 10% ratio, let's give all the commercial property away. Make it all multifamily, because we're never going to get there. But if you want to make a change, then you have to think about that today when you're going to vote on this issue. So for me, I concur with staff, and my vote will be for denial. Councilmember Cosner.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, thank you to staff and the applicant for all the work you've done now as we've gone through this again. I do have a question for Mr. City Manager. A couple times it was mentioned that there's no median cut on Del Prado. Is it possible that there could be, or is that set the way that it is?
I'm going to have interim Public Works Director, person Zambrano.
I haven't been sworn in. Oh, it is, okay, this is just the land use change. When we did the Prado extension, we follow FDOT criteria, and we adopted in our engineering design standards the median openings. So what you see there is what is in the code. In order to open, council can do whatever council wants to do. We will have to amend the engineering and design standards. So the current configuration meets FDOT. Keep in mind that at one point the city was looking forward for Lee County or FDOT taking care of the Prado extension. So that's the reasoning. And eventually we'll connect to I-75. So that was the reasoning behind the access management that you see today.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So the answer is that under the current design standards for the roadway, we would have to measure distances. But if we wanted to do that to alter the site characteristics such that it would attract site selectors, we would have to alter the access management plan for that segment of the roadway.
This is probably going out of the realms of today, but do we feel like that roadway and that area, traffic-wise, could support commercial, like what we're asking for?
Well, as Councilmember Long just pointed out, there's going to be a fully signalized intersection at that corner, right at the doorstep of the parcel, so that changes site selection for entities looking for full access. Additional left-ins or right-in, right-outs, I mean, all those would be analyzed at the time of when the developer submitted a site plan.
Okay, thank you. And then a question for the applicant. It's been said several times tonight that, well, it's two different things have been said. Staff said that a big, maybe not a big box, but a large scale, right? Would they say large scale commercial could go on this site? And you're disagreeing with that. And you're saying, well, at least a big box couldn't go there. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And I'd ask Mike to elaborate if that's okay, Mr. Price.
Speaking from a market perspective, we're in it every day. We deal with these tenants every day. The days of calling on a tenant and really pushing a site, that's not really how it works anymore. These guys spend millions and millions and millions of dollars on tracking data. They tell us, we want to be here within an exact, ratio of area from this dot. You're a dot on our map, that's where we want to be. It's as simple as that. Yes, does access come into play? Majorly, but that's next. Geographical area comes first. We would get these phone calls if Lowe's, Home Depot, I would be happy to share our tenant list of the 113 national, regional, and local tenants that we represent throughout Florida. They're a phone call away. So the lack of interest is not unsubstantiated, it's a lack of interest in a daily course of business. This is from both the developers who would expend the money to go develop for these tenants, who also bring these tenants in tow, all the way down to the tenants. The here and now reality of this is Lowe's isn't calling. Home Depot's not calling. These guys are not calling to be on this site.
And your opinion is that they won't, and it's not because of the market, it's because of the size and constraints of the location?
My opinion is 5 years of exercising this through a marketing strategy and dealing with this and getting zero traction does not give me hope that I'm going to wake up tomorrow and get a phone call that I can fill a 250,000 square foot power center. The reality is if somebody's going to go spend the money to develop that, they're going to want to make money doing that. They have to fill that center. So,
Okay.
yeah, and this goes along with access. Yes, a lighted intersection is nice. No retailer is going to look at that from a big box or retail power perspective and go, a traffic light's going on De Navarro and Del Prado, let's go put in 1 million square feet. That's the reality of the situation. We've been dealing with it specifically on this site for 5 years. It's the same story.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Steinke?
Thank you. I'm really torn on this. I have the exact same sentiments as everyone else does, that we do want to increase our commercial representation in our city. And you know, not having the commercial representation, it's heartbreaking to have the potential from the standpoint of having a property that's zoned that way, but because of shape and location, it's not attractive to a commercial tenant, or to a developer, and so a commercial developer. And so when I look at the Publix, what's on the screen right now, and I look at that Publix center that is to the east of what we're talking about, and I take that shape and I say, okay, well, if that's what we need to make all of that property work, it doesn't fit. For them to we've called it big box, that big box and any of the ancillary businesses along the face of that big box development, they need all the parking that they need as well. And then you need proper ingress, egress. And so I'm concerned that if what we're waiting for is the holy grail of a large scale footprint like we're looking at, and it just won't fit, how long do we want to wait? Yes, we're young. Yes, we're 50% built out. And yes, I believe we have to be stewards of the future as well. But, I mean, there's an old saying, just because I stand in the garage doesn't make me a car. And the same thing is, just because this is commercial property doesn't necessarily mean it's ever going to be attractive for what we're all envisioning that we'll wait for. So I'm very torn on it, and quite frankly was anxious to hear everyone else's comments to help sway my decision.
Councilmember Cummings?
Yes, thank you. I have a question for you. Yes. So you're saying you tried to promote this for commercial for 5 years, is what you stated?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, let me ask you, how did you try to promote this?
I'm happy to answer that. First and foremost, again, reiterating, we service various asset classes in our company. So we have office investment division, we have our land division, which I head, we have our retail tenant representation division and development division, several other divisions. So we utilize our internal, we'll call it Rolodex. So you've got a 20-something year history of this company with people in our company that have, I don't know how much combined experience. You know, decades and decades and decades of experience. You have deep ties in the retail development world. But if you're talking from a specific standpoint, we utilize everything that we can. So we have CoStar, which is the internationally recognized platform that brokers use and developers use to seek out sites. It's an analytic platform as well, so they're running analytics on it. It's a multi-use tool for all of us. We use CoStar, we use LoopNet, we use Showcase, we're using our website. We attend conferences like ICSC in Las Vegas, ICSC Orlando. We don't leave stones unturned. We even hunt for unicorns. Meaning, we're not hoping it's one guy or the other. We look at all the people. and say, if somebody has a bright idea to come here and build a shopping center, we'll listen to you.
So my next question is, because you're talking about the odd shaped, the size is pretty big to me, but I'm not a developer.
Right.
So could like an Amazon fit there?
You mean an industrial distribution center?
Yeah.
I don't have that answer. It's not zoned for it, and it's not what we're seeking, so
I'm just trying to look at the size. So, but a Lowe's could fit there.
that depends.
Okay.
So you have, what's that? Yeah, I mean, if you look at all the Lowe's sites, where are you going to put Lowe's and fit the parking? Where are you going to access?
That's why I'm asking these questions. So I'm trying to get more of a vision inside my head of what we're looking at.
So if you go, I mean, you can look at any commercial development. I think it's been mentioned here multiple times. If you go look at the commercial developments, there's rotational access. There's not, hey, take a left, go up the road, hit another light, go up past that, take a right, take a turn down in, and then come into the parking lot to get into the center. That's what we're looking at here.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hayden.
Yeah, I'm not torn. There's been some exaggerations thrown around that we're giving away our commercial property, that we don't need any more multifamily. As Councilmember Long said, we're halfway built out. The people that come here in the future, in the next 20 or 30 years, aren't going to be wanting to always live in single-family residential. They're going to be wanting to look at multifamily properties for various reasons. I think we have to look at our commercial areas that are prime and know that what needs to be developed and work on those. This particular site to me is not a prime commercial area, and we seem to be ignoring the fact that developers have added to the commercial base here, to the commercial footprint, beyond the multifamily. My guess is the reason Publix went across the street is because this site wasn't a good location for them. There wasn't direct access from 41. To get to the light of Dina Vera, it's a half mile from 41. That can make a difference as well. If this site had direct access off 41, I might be in a different place. But I think we have some great commercial areas that can be developed, and I'm not any different from council on looking at those areas as spots where we need to focus our attention with that entire extension part being pretty much all residential. I think it conforms to the area. I don't think a stoplight there is going to attract any large box feature at all. So, you know, I made the motion to approve for a reason, and I'm not changing.
Councilmember Welsh, before I go to you, Councilmember Shepherd hasn't spoken yet, and his light's on. I'm going to go to him first, and then I'll come back to you.
It's true we all have to try to be visionaries and look at the future, and you know we're already lacking commercial property. At the same time, we have to be visionaries with the possibilities of what could be built. We might have to create new types of zoning. What I see as being a visionary is malls are becoming a thing of the past. So nobody's building malls. And the big box stores, I believe we're kind of lucky. We don't have as many as Fort Myers because I think they're next. I think we're going to start seeing the big box stores disappear. That's what I see as trying to think like a visionary. So I 100% agree with the council people that want to save as much commercial as possible. But I believe as a city, we have to be visionaries and start being creative and investigating on what does lie in the future and what do we have to prepare for. And if we do have to create some new type of zoning, when I look at the availability of accessing the property, you know, it's a big piece of property. It's long and thin, but to not be able to have any entrances anywhere else is a big hindrance. I don't see any more big box stores being built. Do I exactly know the future? No, I'm not a professional. Maybe that's what we need as a city to do, is if there is some knowledge that we can seek to be educated on what type of development the future looks like for commercial or light industrial. Light industrial might be the more of a need in the future. So this is a tough one. So I'm in the middle. I'll be honest with you. I want to protect commercial, but at the same time, to save a piece of property for a big box store that might never come, my adult children don't go to Publix. They don't go to supermarkets. Their food's delivered. They order a week's worth of meals and they show up at their doorstep. It's just things are changing, and I think we need more education to make the proper decisions. And like I said, I'm stuck in the middle here. So that's my honest opinion. Thank you.
Councilmember Welsh?
Yes. Is there any strip on Pine Island Road that doesn't have curb cuts similar to this with that district that's developed with commercial? Or is there another way? A lot of things I'm hearing today is there's no curb cuts, there's no left in, but they could probably build like an access road in the front, or is that not allowed with? So they could intentionally, if they split this different ways with different types of commercial, maybe not a big box store or a public shopping center, but this certainly could be broken up into multiple parcels for commercial, and they could gain access using a frontage access road, correct?
Yeah, there could be a right-in, right-out situation. I'll use the Publix at the other end, at Kismet and Del Prado. They have basically a right-in, single access only in, and then you get into the parcel and you have a corridor road that gets you to all the different
Yeah, I believe that's
parcels.
the same at the Lowe's on Veterans as well. They have a right-in and a right-out there that gets you into the Target, the Lowe's, and that public shopping center. So saying that there's access for not commercial, I'm having trouble with on this one.
Can I answer that question?
Go ahead.
Linda Miller, Vice President of Avalon Engineering. So with the commercial subdivision that we're proposing here, you have an internal access road. So you have access off of Inavera Parkway and a right-in, right-out off of Del Prado, but you do have access roads to all of the out parcels. So like a secondary frontage road that you're talking about. But that doesn't really help with the left into the facility, which is the median cut. We would need a left in heading towards US 41. There is no left in into the shopping center. So we have a frontage access road for all of the out parcels, but no way to enter the site from that median cut. So when you get on that intersection of Dinavera Parkway and go to US 41, you have to do a U-turn around there at that corner to get back into our site.
Which is also part of my concern. Not that I'll need an answer to, but my concern is if we change 200 feet, they're going to need an access road. So now it's not just 200 feet. Now we've got 50 feet of access road. So now what commercial is going to come in and want to put a box on 150 feet because they don't have the access from the road? So I think, yes, this looks a lot better than what we were given before. And I'm glad that they were able to work this up, but it's still concerning to me that we're even going to get any commercial on this frontage because of the lack of access. And by giving up this chunk, it's going to be tougher to even attract certain things there because, you're going to need that road in the back. And yeah, they're building it with the multifamily, but yeah, those are just my thoughts. Thank you.
If that's a question on.
It was more of a statement.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, just got a question for you. With that new controlled access light that was spoken about, could we revisit the access management plan once that new signalized light is installed or even before it's installed?
Yeah, if If you go to the original intent, as Persides was trying to say, we were trying to build Del Prado north of Pine Island Road, all the way out to 41, and then ultimately to 75 as a limited access, basically an evacuation route corridor. So we purposely designed it to not have a lot of curb cuts across the median. But as we've all discussed, after 20 or 30 years, if the nature of that roadway begins to change, as we've seen with Pine Island Road, and we're working with the state today to change its access management plan, we can certainly do the same here, and it would change the optics for the site for a site selector.
And the reason I say that is because I think that is available to us to have that discussion and to take a look at that access management plan. You know, I know we've all here recently been in discussions about the Pine Island Road District, which is very close to this location. And we already know, you know, we have about 9,000 units that are interested in building multifamily in the Pine Island Road District alone. And when you look at the plan that was revisited for the need of multifamily in the city, that was about 700 units a year for the next several years. And we're talking 9,000 units that are interested in being built on Pine Island Road District. So look at the need. You know, is the need here for additional multifamily? I think that's a legitimate question you have to ask yourself, knowing that we've all been in the discussions and know about the 9,000 units that want to be built on Pine Island Road, and this is, you know, right around the corner from there. Again, is the need commercial or is the need multifamily? You know, for me, the need for a commercial is greater, and that's why I'm voting the way I am. Councilmember Cummings.
Yeah, kind of what I was going to say is, the growth of our city in the last 2 years is just booming like mad. And all the multifamilies coming up, like the mayor was just talking about. That's my great concern though too, is the infrastructure. All these vehicles, we already have a problem on Pine Island Road as it is. And yes, you're out, you know, out there, playing product. My concern, once again, is our lack of commercial property. We don't have much here. And I want to see what can happen, knowing how we're growing so fast. What opportunities can be coming to us in the very near future? So this is just where I'm torn, where we stand, but I do know we're lacking infrastructure. I do know that we are building out like mad, and the future, population is growing. They're saying, another 30,000, 40,000 people is going to be coming in the next 2 years, and then they say, what, 2030 it was 400,000? That's a lot, and we're at 8% commercial. I just want to see more commercial. I really do, and we're in a situation where this is very difficult. I know for myself. So I like the project, but I also know that we are desperately in need of more commercial here in Cape Coral.
Councilmember Stinky.
Quick question. There was talk about access road, and there'd be, if you will, an internal access road. If you could bring up on the screen your, it's in red, I think. No, I don't think it's numbered in this backup material. Looks like page 17 of 18. And there's another one.
It's only 25 feet, so it's 200.
Might be able to do it from that. So the pinkish, if you will, that's out on Del Prado, that's all commercial.
Roadway.
Is the where the blue meets the pink? Is that where the access would be to the commercial? In other words, they got to come down Del Prado, turn out of Dina Vera, then turn right into the development, if you will. Then how are all those commercial properties accessed?
Now, this exhibit doesn't show that the road has to continue all the way to out parcel number 5. So yes, there's a 25-foot roadway that will be connecting to the roadway that's existing there that will go into the north part of the commercial, or the front part of the commercial, all the way on that, between the blue line and and the pink line, all the way to our parcel 5. It does not limit the depth of the commercial, that's for sure. So we still have matter of fact, a lot of commercial end users like this approach because you're not putting the roadway up in the front, so you're pushing the building more towards the roadway, and then you're providing the parking in the back.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other lights on. We have a motion to approve we have the city attorney to put his lights on, so I'll let him speak first.
I want to make a point of clarification. The motion to amend the motion to approve, it's based upon the future land use map amendment that has been modified from its original version. I just want to make sure that was what the motion was made and that was what was seconded.
Yes,
So it's not the original one, it was the modified one that was submitted after and reviewed by staff.
Yeah, because we withdrew.
Perfect, I just want to make that clarification.
And we were changing from mixed use to,
It was going from mixed use to multifamily.
right,
Yeah.
and that's what the motion is, go from mixed use to multifamily.
Yeah, and that changes the amount, and that was depicted from what it was previously down to 18.67. So I just want to make that clarification.
Everybody have a full understanding of the motion?
Say it one more time.
I'm sorry?
Can you say that motion one more time?
The motion maker, my understanding, Councilmember Hayden, was to approve the change from mixed use to multifamily.
With the land use map that was modified.
Yes, the future land use map amendment based upon the modified version that ultimately was reviewed by staff during the staff presentation.
Okay. Madam City Clerk, call the roll.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
No.
Shepherd? Aye. Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh? No. Cosden?
Aye.
Cummings?
No.
Gunter?
No.
4 ayes, 4 nays, motion failed.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. We have ordinance 82-23. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 82-23, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $165 million in aggregate principal amount of utility improvement assessment bonds, Series 2023 of the City of Cape Coral, Florida.